inaugural IDEATex event. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday evening, wherever you are. I hope you're safe, happy, healthy, and ready for a really interesting, incredibly insightful, funny, and also just brilliant panel of experts and topic of conversation. We're really excited to start hosting IDEATex. So what is IDEATex? It's an event series that we're hosting. We're creating a platform to really amplify a lot of voices within our community. It's our digital version of our event series that we've previously hosted. And for those that are new to IDEATE, IDEATex event. Welcome. IDEATE is accelerating ideas for a regenerative world as a global community, inspired by our values and the Burning Man principles. We're a community of really purpose-driven entrepreneurs, creatives, and humans that are coming together to co-create a new reality that works for everyone and for all life on this planet. Our organization, a nonprofit organization and community-based organization, was born on the playa in 2009 and has grown to over 2,000 members across the world. We've recently accelerated a carbon offset program and a 2030 environmental sustainability roadmap for the Burning Man project, as well as our own successful composting solution. And we're currently organizing a range of different events that include IDEATex. It includes our virtual reality and virtual Burning Man experience that we'll be sharing more about, as well as collaborating with a lot of different key partners to amplify our initiatives of regenerative action, COVID-19 and pandemic response, impact art, which we're really excited about, and also racial justice. All of these are highlighted in our monthly newsletter, as well as all over our social media. And so please join us. So why are we having this IDEATex event series, and why are we starting it now? Well, 2020 has really brought on a really systemic crisis for us that no one could really anticipate. And in light of this, we feel that we need all the resources we can possibly find to help us respond and recover in the best way we can, in the best appropriate manner. So that's why we're really launching IDEATex. It is our digital version of our famous speaker series that was born on Playa and now is being spread all over the globe. And we're really excited for our first event here to discuss psychedelics and their role in solving the economic, health, and race crisis all at once. So thank you for joining us. And I'll now introduce our brilliant host, Jeff Pawlak. Jeff Pawlak is a growth strategist that's based in San Francisco. He served as a co-lead of IDEATE in 2018 and 2019. He works with social impact startups to help create a planet that works for 100% of humanity. He previously founded Aqueduct, a water infrastructure startup, and most recently served as the director of growth at Housable, an affordable housing startup. He is passionate, and I mean passionate, about cities, psychedelics, and existential risk. And Jeff, I'm really honored to introduce you, and here we go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you everyone for being here. It's really an honor to be kicking off IDEATex. I think it's quite a milestone for our entire community to be gathering together, that we've done this on Playa, but really to be bringing this kind of a platform to everybody. It's very meaningful. So the fact that we're kicking it off with psychedelics, this is my favorite topic in the world, and so I'm thrilled that we're getting to start here. And we have brought three just fantastic people who are all just dear friends of IDEATE and have really helped me on my journey as well, all three of them in their own unique ways. So it's going to be really a fantastic discussion tonight. So first, introducing Tricia. So Tricia is a pioneer in the psychedelic renaissance with a mission to inspire others to become their own inner alchemists. Her holistic approach incorporates Eastern philosophy, tantra, biohacking, herbal medicine, mind-body integration, archetypal mapping, meditation, somatic therapy, and shamanism. For over 15 years, she has consulted for top destination spa and retreat centers on novel treatments and best practices. As a medicine woman operating internationally, she curates medicine retreats in countries where use is legal. And she happened to be my introduction to the medicine world. So that was quite a special thing. Sonia Troiani Doulton is an integrative psychotherapist and counselor with a certificate in psychedelic assisted therapy and research from the California Institute of Integral Studies. Sonia has been exploring the therapeutic potential of non-ordinary states of consciousness for the last 30 years and has worked in mental health for the last 10 years. Sonia currently runs her private practice, collaborates in a ketamine-assisted therapy clinic, and provides psychedelic integration both online in San Francisco. And I've actually been participating in her integration circles in San Francisco for several months, which has been a fantastic way to really share my experience during the pandemic. Gregory Ferenstein is a research consultant specializing in welfare field experiments, public policy, and psychedelics. His works have appeared in numerous publications, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the American Journal of Political Science. He holds a master's in mathematical behavioral sciences from the University of California, Irvine. And Greg is also has been in IDEATE for quite a while, longer than I have, and has shared great wisdom to me at the most specific moments that I needed them, and is a dear friend. So thank you, all three of you, for coming to this event. And so I'm actually going to start off with Sonia here. So ketamine is actually legal in a prescriptive setting, which a lot of people don't realize, that people think that there's no psychedelics that are legal, but actually ketamine is. And so Sonia is already administering this to her clients. So Sonia, I'd love to get a sense of how your current practice in the ketamine world is going and what you're seeing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for your question. And when we were about to finish our program at CIS towards the end of 2018, we decided, few course mates, to start a clinic. Mainly, we were thinking about doing expanded access for MDMA for PTSD as part of the FDA clinical trial, which didn't really quite happen at the extension that we expected. And so we thought, well, we have ketamine. Ketamine is available right now. It's legal. Why don't we work with ketamine instead? So that was really like some kind of plan B rather than an actual inspiration or passion for ketamine. So I didn't really know that medicine. As part of my program at CIS, I needed to do a practicum in a clinic. And again, I thought, well, maybe I can go and do ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in this clinic, Polaris, in San Francisco, in the Castro. And that's really my introduction. That was my introduction to ketamine. I knew nothing about it until then. And I started having my own journeys with ketamine, intramuscularly administered and through lozenges. And I just discovered the potential of this medicine that just continued to grow on me. So I then did some training there, and I've been working now there for a couple of years. And that's how I learned about the incredible therapeutic potential of this medicine. And the fact that that was legal and was available is the main attraction for us all. And so, yeah, we put together a great project and looking for funds and looking for everything that we needed to do to start the company, which is a nonprofit. And we finally launched at the beginning of March. The clinic is called Ceremony Health. And we launched just in time for the shelter-in-place order. So we very quickly had to rearrange and readapt our protocol to an online version because we were not allowed to see people in person. So that was a very interesting timing, but it's been really interesting. And so we have realized that, you know, there are pros and cons. We were expecting a lot of cons, but there were some pros as well. People actually enjoyed working in the comfort of their homes and be lying down on the sofas or beds and not having to go anywhere at the end of the journey, which is something that it can be kind of stressful when you've been in an expanded state for the last few hours, and then you have to get out of the building and just get in the middle of the traffic, call an Uber, and just go straight back into the default world can be kind of, you know, stressful and traumatic even. So to be able to just stay in the comfort of your home has been incredibly beneficial for many. So many people have given us really positive feedback about how much easier and more comfortable it is to do this work at home. So this is what we're doing at Ceremony Health. Ceremony Health specializes in group ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. We have realized that we get hurt in a relationship and we can heal in relationships. So most of the medical model has been focusing on individual healing, and what we wanted to focus on was collective healing. So what happens when we come together in community, when we build community, how much more healing can happen when we do this as a collective practice. So this is really something that became very important for us. And then the other element that we introduced in our practice was the ceremony. So as a human species, we've always been involved in ceremonies and rituals for different reasons, for healing, for rites of passage, for initiations and celebrations. And so we realized that that aspect was medicine in itself. So we felt like we wanted to decentralize the substance and centralize the community and the ceremony and the coming together as a collective entity, healing together and growing together, and how much that could have an impact, a ripple, could ripple out to all the other communities that each of those group members are involved in. And so that's how ceremony health was born. And we feel like what we offer is a healing practice, and it's also very, it's a spiritual practice. So we call ourselves a faith-based healing center.
That's wonderful and so badly needed in times of crisis for people to access these kinds of medicines. So Greg, you are currently studying microdosing over at the Third Wave. So could you tell us what you're up to and what you're learning about microdosing?
Sure. So I'm a nerd. I like to do things as precisely and quantitatively as I can. But I also like to explore and figure out new ways and new things of what we can explore quantitatively. So I had a life-changing psychedelic experience, like probably everyone on this call. And I was like, what is going on? None of this makes sense. All of the best teachings were really ambiguous. They used words that I didn't understand, that I don't know if, and didn't make any sense to me. So for the last couple of years, I've been traveling the world, figuring out ever more precise and exploratory ways of just figuring out what happens when I take a psychedelic and I turn into just this radical ball of love, which is a new personality for me. And I like that person. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I'm really bad at it. And so I need spreadsheets, lots and lots of spreadsheets. Other people are just like used to feeling things. And this is easy for me. No, like I need something systematic. At the moment, I am a research director, head of research, something like that, at a website called The Third Wave, which is a content and a coaching site. I am doing, the main project is to produce a piece of scientific research on people who microdose, but it's not just microdosing. People's journeys tend to be a variety of different doses and a variety of different substances. And so I look at what different substances do and do not do for people's lives, mostly their personal relationships and economic outcomes, like if they're better at work or if they got divorced, but also some substance abuse issues. And so I'll probably publish that in the fall. And if you have a psychedelic experience, or you know someone who has a psychedelic experience and they want to share anonymously, I would love to collect your data, because this will be shared with the world, hopefully, and it will inform how other people coach. Right, that's it on me.
Cool. Well, thanks for that. And so, Tricia, you've done a lot of medicine work, from anything from Navy SEALs to defense contractors and everything in between. So I'd love to get a sense of the work that you're doing with 5-MeO-DMT, Iboga, and kind of how that world works for you.
Well, I've been really fortunate. I got into psychedelics 6 years ago. I was invited to work at a clinic in Mexico called Crossroads, where we did ibogaine therapy for two programs. One was for addiction, for opiate detox, and the other is for psycho-spiritual. So we were getting a lot of people that wanted to work with ibogaine as well as 5-MeO-DMT, which the program was doing one night of ibogaine, having a rest day, and then doing the 5-MeO-DMT at the end. And so that evolved because it was in more of a sterile clinical setting. And I got a lot of requests to do this work in more of like a shamanic environment. And I went to Africa and I got initiated in Gabon, and have been, gone through and done initiations over every year for the last 6 years that I've been working with the medicine. And it's evolved into this psychedelic journeys retreat work that I've been doing, where we do one retreat format that's working with toad over 5 days, working with the Bufo alvarius. And one of the things that, now I think even more than ever with COVID-19, with everything that's happened in the world, I think people are paying attention more. And so I'll also make note that we are kind of upgrading a lot of the things that we're doing within the work that I'm doing. For instance, we're researching different forms of natural forms of 5-MeO-DMT that are not derived from the Sonoran Desert toad because of sustainability. But we do a protocol that's really inspired by the lands where the toad came from, where we do sweat lodge, and you really are you familiar with the Temescal ceremony, Jeff? Have you done it before?
I am familiar, but it would be great if you could tell the group about Temescal.
So the sweat lodge has been around in many traditions. Even in the tradition that I'm initiated in Africa, they use sweat lodge. They call it something different. It's called ifulu. And what it is it's a process of incorporating heat, usually through heated stones, in an enclosed area. And typically a sweat lodge is made with some form of like sticks, and then there's blankets around it, but there's also forms of temescal that are made from stones and clay as well. And it's basically like this enclosed kind of like sauna that you go into, and it gets very hot in there. And in the process, there's different rounds where you're working with the elemental energies, and that actually helps for purification and preparation to work with the medicine. And so when we do the ceremony, the purpose of it is to start off with your intentions, to start off with these ideas of the things that you want to release with the medicine, and then going into the toad really clear, like working with the Bufo alvarius, which is 5-MeO-DMT, from a very clear and open space. And so we incorporate embodiment practices throughout the retreat. We work with the toad over 3 days. So you work with the toad 3 times over 3 days, and then we do a Mayan cacao ceremony at the end, where we're really using the cacao to ground and integrate. And we're using working with a lot of the indigenous wisdom keepers of the land that we're in close relationship with in Tulum. We have a really great family, I'll call them, in Tulum that work with the Temescal, and I'm a moon dancer, so I work with the Mexica lineage. And my mother is Mexican, so I also carry that in my bloodline. So I feel very connected to that work, and it's really helped me. And then the other retreat that I do is working with the iboga. And the one thing about these shamanic practices, and I think that's why it's so valuable, the work that you're doing, Greg, and the work that you're doing, Sonia, is that we have to bring these ancestral elements in a way that someone who is used to working with spreadsheets can understand, so that it can integrate, because the indigenous wisdom traditions have so much to bring to our culture, to reconnect to nature, to reconnect to our own true nature, within. And so it's something that's so missing from our society. And I feel that they also bring such a deep sense of connection and community that is also, you know, very missing from our society, because many of these traditions come from, you know, times when nuclear families looked very different. You know, we lived in a more tribal setting and we were all very connected. And, you know, many psychologists and people that have anthropologists would agree that, for instance, Gabor Mate, that taking us out of the village, taking us out of that setting has actually created a lot of trauma and wounding that we need to restore by coming back together. And that's why these integration circles are so valuable, in finding ways to bring that element into online community, like what we're, you know, doing right here in this present moment.
I would love to survey every single one of your participants.
Yeah, well, we can do that. I would love to work with you on that. And my partner,
I have surveys and interviews and anything. Just name it. I will find a way to learn from them.
Oh yeah, well, that's what we're all about. And my partner is a psychedelic researcher, Dr. Joseph Barsulia. You know, we've been together actually for 6 years. We met and we both synchronistically started working at Crossroads, the Abogaine Clinic, and we both got initiated together. So our love story is truly a remarkable story of transformation. And his gift is that, you know, he is a research psychologist before he got into psychedelics, which he worked for MAPS for 2 years on the phase 2 and 3 trial, which is now paused due to COVID-19. But he worked with them. And then also we both worked together on a project called Mission Within, where we were working with Navy SEALs, you know, working with them, working with trauma with 5-MeO, DMT, and with Iboga, which is quite profound work, because you know, you take the most dedicated, disciplined people who also have trauma, and then you give them a really powerful tool to work with, and the results. And actually, I'll post, I don't know where it would be best to post this, but my partner just published in one of the research journals a study on some of the results of before and after with some of the Navy SEALs that literally just came out this last month, and it's really good research. But he's had about maybe a dozen or so research papers, and then, you know, different posters and studies. He did some really cool brain scan work on veterans post Abogaine, which is really cool. So I'll send you guys some of that stuff to nerd out on. But we really try to integrate the scientific and the shamanic, because I feel like in this modern world, we need to have both. And that's how we can really connect to everyone. We want to be able to create a family that we can all have a point, you know, like almost like the Venn diagram, this like, you know, portal in the middle where we can all meet. And I think that really is the scientific and the spiritual, or the shamanic, you know, kind of merging together. And so with the work that we do with Iboga, we really bring a lot of the integration aspect into it, because it's such a big medicine. One of my good friends, Eamon Armstrong, when I was on his podcast, he called it the Mount Everest of psychedelics, which it really is. And you really need that kind of level of support. And it's not necessarily, you know, holding anything for you, but it's really about being there for the individual and helping support that process, and asking the questions that are going to help them to really, you know, dig deeper within themselves.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. And I really just need to stress that the work that Tricia is doing is so far outside of Western comprehension that there are anecdotes of people doing Iboga and they are able to literally see through their eyelids. Just these totally miraculous things that are way beyond what the West knows anything about. So, you know, this is just all psychedelics in general, just a very powerful perspective. So this talk is very much about psychedelics in the era of COVID, that a lot of things are changing right now. And I believe that psychedelics are uniquely needed at this time in the way that maybe they weren't even needed a couple of years ago, because of the things that are changing so quickly. So Sonia, one thing I would ask is, what is one practical way that psychedelics, or maybe ketamine in your instance, can make the world better? Just not necessarily healing, but one specific way that the benefits of this that you can't get from traditional talk therapy.
Yeah, there's a big difference between working with medicines and working with traditional talk therapy, which I have practiced for over 10 years now. And I did believe in it at the beginning, but I also quickly saw the limitations of it. I think that when we work with non-ordinary states of consciousness, we have a felt experience rather than a cognitive one, something that is fully embodied, and that we are right in the middle, at the root of the experience itself, rather than a story of the experience. And I think that's the main difference. Sometimes we can intellectualize and mentalize experiences, and that takes us away from them. And in the expanded state, we are right in there. So the words are not really that needed anymore, and it's okay to find stories and create stories about those experiences, but they are not as relevant as the experience itself. So I think that the main difference is about moving from the head into an embodied, felt level of the experience, and that's why it's so much. It's so powerful, so much that it feels like sometimes like there's an acceleration in the healing process. Or sometimes people say, I feel like tonight I've done what I would have done in 2 years of therapy. And that's really the experience that I had as well, witnessing the healing processes of people, the healing journeys of people. And through my own first time witnessing this level of acceleration, that's how I got really excited, and I started investigating, looking for ways to do this work. I was a burning man at the Zendo project when I first sat for someone in an expanded state, and it was just the most extraordinary experience in 8 hours with mushrooms. We did such an incredible piece of work that I was like, I want to do this every day. I want to integrate this in my practice. And I trained as an integrative psychotherapist in London, and so I was already integrating different modalities, and it just felt so natural to just choose to integrate psychedelics as well, which had already been part of my life while I was growing up, since I was an adolescent. So I was already very familiar with the power that they held. And although my very first experience, like probably for each one of us, was very recreational, very soon I realized that there was more to them. And after my very first time in a rave, taking LSD many years ago, I decided, okay, this is an incredible experience, but I want to do it in the right set and setting. And nobody was talking about set and setting in the 90s, but it was very obvious to me from straight away. And so psychedelics were already very familiar to me, but that night at the Zendo project, I realized that there could be an incredible therapeutic tool. And so I've been really looking for ways to integrate them since. And so it's been an interesting story. Mine was a story of being above ground, unlike Tricia. And so, but I also feel the call of the shamanic force. And so I've been trying to figure out how can we bring together above ground is in the Western world. How can we create a modality that is right for the Western mind in this time and era? And that's how really ceremony health came to life. Yes, how can they help? They can help in many different ways. I think that there is something that the medicine does in terms of neurogenesis and some very quick shifts that can happen in our brains. But what I think is really powerful is that realization of oneness, of interconnectedness, of interdependence that psychedelics are so very good at illustrating for us. And so once we come back from these incredible journeys and we realize that we're not separate, we move beyond the illusion of separateness so quickly, and we realize that we're all one, not only as a human species, but one with the animal kingdom and with the planet and with the cosmos, that experience just puts us back into the default world with a completely different sense of who we are. Somehow our self-identity gets so transformed. We realize that we are so much more beyond our ego, and and beyond our self-beliefs, and that level of expansion that we can experience is so incredible that then we cannot come back and continue to live a life in the same way. And I think that this can have an impact at so many different levels. I mean, this is a conversation that would take hours, but I'm always curious about what does that do at the level of social justice, at the level of capitalism. You know, how can we how are we going to change? You know, my husband sometimes says they should put it in the water supply. What would happen if we all had an opportunity to expand our consciousness? What level of evolution of the human species and the human consciousness could we hope for? You know, it's really limitless, the possibilities. So in terms of applications and uses, it's too long to say, but you get the point.
The sky's the limit, absolutely. I think there really is a link between individuals having peak experiences and the possibility for the entire population to change if enough people get there. Greg, what is the data telling us about people's ability to act in resilient ways or cope with challenges with psychedelics in context of a crisis?
Are we allowed to disagree with this? I am a bit more of a fiery.
Yes.
Trained in a very debate style. So if I interrupt you, just tell me that I'm being rude or something.
Not being rude.
It's just in my blood. So I don't know if psychedelics do anything unique to non-psychedelic states, with the exception of DMT, which is just strange, and I don't think we really understand. Maybe Iboga too. But as far as MDMA, LSD, psilocybin, I think that they're not too different than states of deep meditation. And if you're really skilled, or you do it really long enough, or you have therapy for 10 years, then you can get to that state. Psychedelics tend to accelerate people into those moments of realization because they elevate people's emotions, and through that emotional elevation, they then get to those insights that they may not have, that may have taken them much longer to do through more intensive, longer mindfulness. The data suggests that I would say psilocybin mostly of dosages between 0.1 and 0.3 grams helps people maintain a positive affect, especially in the face of, let's say, episodic depression. So something will happen to you and you're like, this sucks. Now I'm gonna feel bad about myself and everyone around me, and I don't know why, I just feel awful. And then, your partner hates and you can't work. Microdosing on anything between every 3 days to once a week seems to make people who have episodic depression resistant to those things. LSD, if you have trouble concentrating, LSD or finding like motivation and creativity and curiosity, small bits of LSD between, let's say, 0.1 micrograms and 0.25 micrograms can help you kind of deal with kind of long days at home. And that tends to have a halo effect on non-dosing days as well. So that's what I'm hearing specific to COVID-19 and being trapped alone or trapped with someone else.
Right, there really is. It's almost like you have a bunch of different options. It's a toolkit, and you pull out a different tool based on what it is that your specific needs are, if you choose to enter this world. So that's cool. And so Tricia, you have a lot of contacts with indigenous communities. In fact, you brought some Zulu drummers to IDEATE last year. What are the indigenous communities saying about COVID-19 and the world we're currently in?
There's been some really great indigenous wisdom councils that have been held, organized by this organization called The Fountain, which Jyoti Ma, who's the founder of the 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, she founded. And also I'm involved with another group that's led by Chief Philip Lane. And he has been doing some really interesting circles, talking circles, and he's also doing some training in talking circles, which is really beautiful. And then of course there's a lot of other organizations. So I'm trying to speak from a overall view, and I can't really speak for everybody, but I can say a couple of things. One, that there needs to be a big change. You know, we need to take this as a lesson. It's kind of like a warning. And this is more speaking from the standpoint of like prophecy, for instance. You know, it's very, many people that have researched different indigenous wisdom traditions are familiar with the rainbow prophecies by the Hopi tribe, and the idea of a turning point in the world. And I think there's many different viewpoints. You know, you could have the political viewpoint of the world, you could have the ecological viewpoint of the world, and I would say many of them are very grim at this moment, related to what's happening in the world, and the economic view of the world would also be probably a very grim one as well. But the thing I'm hearing from most of the indigenous wisdom keepers that I'm close with is that we are going through a global shift, that we are going through a collective purge. This is like a big ayahuasca ceremony that we're all in together, and we are going to come out of it more connected, more aware, and living a whole new way of life. It's just really for us, whether we want to kick and scream along the way, or whether we want to see the signs and start, moving into communities where we're doing land-based projects and growing our own food, and shifting the way that we look at capitalism, and shifting the way that we look at healthcare, and shifting the way we look at our economy and how people are compensated. And so, really ultimately, no matter what, the prophecies are, this is our choice. And what I've seen in terms of the response in different councils, different communities that are like a mix of, people like us that are more immersed in the Western world and are more what I would call bridges, and those that are, representatives of these indigenous nations. Coming together, is that there's a lot of collaboration happening, and a lot of really interesting new ideas that are coming about, like a lot of talks of new infrastructures, free energy systems, or new types of energy systems, new ways of coming together in community, new types of legal formats for land protection, land trusts, all that kind of thing. And so I'm really excited for the future. I've really appreciated, this process that we've all been in together. I know it's not an easy process, but I do feel that we're all headed in a good direction.
Absolutely. And I think it really is, obviously indigenous communities disagree, but the point is that they are wisdom holders of things that we just don't know about in the West. It's just, the thing is about indigenous communities, you think you understand them until you go talk to them, you realize, no, I don't. It's far different than what you think. And there really is just some profound ideas about the world and reality that we just aren't familiar with in the West. I did want to make a book recommendation to everyone called One Plant's Dream. It's about ayahuasca, Amazonian shamanism, and the global psychedelic renaissance. And this is kind of, if you like the Michael Pollan book, this is a good follow-up, because this goes a little bit deeper into ayahuasca, learning about the indigenous traditions, and you can really start to explore this topic in depth. So I would I'm just a couple chapters in, but I'd strongly recommend it. So we're 2/3 of the way through, so I'd love to see if there are any questions in the chat, or if you'd like to write one now, feel free and go ahead. Carol, how are we doing?
Can I chime in just really quickly about the book? So I've been writing a book, and I've gotten some great progress thanks to all the space of COVID-19. And the working title right now is Traversing the Innerverse, plant medicine, ancestral wisdom, and the path to transcendent consciousness. And I will also endorse When Plants Dream, because Sophia is a good friend of mine. Sophia Rockland co-wrote the book with Daniel Pinchbeck, and I really feel it's a great book because it's not only highlighting more of the feminine energy that I think needs to be balanced in the psychedelic space, you know, the way that it's being presented in the Western world, but I love the idea of like co-writing it, like having masculine and feminine kind of blending together, and that union of the energy. So it's really a special book, and Sophia's the editor for my book. She's been helping me, and we've been working really closely together. So really hope you guys get a chance to check it out.
And just to follow up on that, I do have a friend who, before Tricia even starting writing a book, he said, as soon as she writes a book, I'm going to read the shit out of that book. And I think we all should do that, because this book is going to be a really fascinating one when it's released. So Kevin, David, if there's questions, feel free to go ahead, or else
It looks like there's a question. First of all, I would like a copy. I'd like a signed copy. It looks like there's a question from Dekai.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. I selfishly want to start with one on my own that I've heard from a lot of people in preparing for this event, which are, in this age of COVID, a lot of people are reflecting on their wellness, right? Their immunity, their body, they're dropping in a little bit more. They're thinking about their general health and wellness. And so we're hoping that you guys could each give maybe your opinion on, if someone is looking from that angle and that perspective on their health and wellness, and they want to start to explore psychedelics to help with that. Where should they start? What's the best starting point from each of you four brilliant experts? What would you say is the best starting point for someone? Jeff, you want to start, and then you can call on other people?
Truth be told, I think that you really have to find, in regards to psychedelics, you have to find what works for you. It's very hard to be prescriptive because everybody's different. And so ketamine doesn't work as well for me, but microdosing is incredible. And it tends to lead to a lot of breakthroughs. So I actually would say, whatever it is, start small. Some people say you want to dive in, but I really recommend just dipping your toe in the water. Don't take a massive dose because it can get weird. And that's why microdosing actually is a really wonderful place to start. You can really test it out before going deep. But really anything like that.
I have an opinion about it. So this is something I've been thinking about deeply, because we have to think about how you match people to different coaches, especially at Third Wave, because you have a number of people. And so where do you start them first? The first thing I would say is talk to a professional. Do not do this on your own. Pay money to see a professional. And if you can, pay a couple of professionals and then try to get an educated opinion. I think the Third Wave is good, but I'm biased. But definitely see it with a professional. And once you do that, I would ask your friends, look on forums, and try to find instances of people who have gone through similar things and who have similar demographic characteristics, and see if what works for them also worked for you, so long as what worked for them was also done by some professional or could be mimicked by some professional. So I do a lot of keyword searches in Reddit, or asking questions. You could be dealing with depression, family issues, etc.
Wonderful. Tricia.
So it's interesting. I was really meditating on this as you were asking, and I agree with Greg on the fact that I think that if you're working with psychedelics in a time that's so destabilizing, it's really important to have a support system. And that's the first thing I ask people in any kind of psychedelic work is, what is your support system? Do you have friends that are using psychedelics? are your family okay with you using psychedelics? Like, who are you going to tell about this? Like, are you connected to the psychedelic community? Are you involved in, because, you can't just rely on one person, whether it be a facilitator or a coach or whatever, to fulfill all your support needs related to such a deep and multi-textured, multi-dimensional type of experience, whether it's with microdosing or with, heroic dosing. And I would say that it's surprising how psychedelics are impacting people. So for instance, I'm seeing people have a lot more intense experiences with purging even in microdosing. So whatever's happening collectively, the trauma that's coming, those psychedelics are gonna kind of, it's like they loosen up the trauma. It's like, a beach ball that's submerged underwater. You can't like hold it down. It just like comes up. So just be really aware of your state of mind, because they are a non-specific amplifier. So you still want to work with intention. You want to be really clear about why you're using them, and setting is really important as well. Although, it's not like you're going to be going very many places right now, or maybe not. But and then the other thing that I would add to that is tobacco is such a beautiful, powerful medicine that has a really bad rap, because of how it's been kind of pulled into this other era of commodification, where it's had all these like ingredients added into it that aren't good for your health. But in the shamanic traditions, almost every shamanic tradition works with tobacco as a medicine. And there were some studies, although I didn't see anything formal or peer reviewed, but there were some things I got in like some of the chats about work that people have been doing with COVID-19, and we're saying that rapé, which is the shamanic tobacco used in the Amazon, it's applied with an applicator. So you blow it up the nose, either a self-applicator, which is a crepe, or someone else can do it for you, which is a tepe. Obviously, you don't want to be doing it in groups and sharing an applicator, because that could put you at risk of spreading COVID-19. But there are some studies that I've been hearing about it actually preventing you and increasing your immunity against COVID-19. But I think tobacco is such a beautiful medicine for grounding. And that's really what we need now. And there's so much uncertainty and there's so much like energy moving around. It's a really good medicine to just kind of help you find your ground.
To jump in, I don't know. I think peer-reviewed studies, especially in psychedelic sciences, are a little overrated. They're mostly a political tool, because you need to go through the process for deregulation and descheduling of the drug. I think a lot of the good science is done in the underground, what Tricia and maybe Sonia has done as well, but also in the clinics. And so if you find a really cogent anecdote that applies to you, and you have a trusted professional who can help you lead you through whatever they did, I don't think it has to be published in a peer-reviewed journal, or even a journal, for it to be very powerful for you. I mean, I've gone through a number of very powerful, very real, and very effective things that are not based in literature yet.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And a lot of this is based on direct experience more than anything else. I just tried hape for the first time, or rapé. And yeah, there's not a ton out there in terms of what the scientific community has embraced, but it is a very powerful and very amazing medicine. Great. And then Sonia, wellness.
Yeah, I think you're making a really great point there. And I think that a lot of the knowledge that we have comes from the oral tradition. And so we need to really have a lot of respect and reverence for the knowledge that is being transmitted in that way. And I think that also a lot of the clinical work that we're doing is pretty much based on the work that the underground practitioners did in the last several decades. I mean, even in the above ground organizations, that's where our knowledge comes from. So I just wanted to to just come on board on that comment. It's very important. I agree with everything that was said. maybe I can share some of my practices. I really believe in the power of creating a container for this type of work. I want to be cautious about the legality issues as well in a public talk like today. So I would like to offer the option of maybe trying cannabis as a psychedelic. Cannabis can also have used in a certain way with a certain type of setting can really be conducive to incredible psychedelic experiences if you want to follow the whole protocol of lying down with eye shades on, a curated playlist. It can be extremely powerful, and I have personally had quite surprising, powerful experiences done with a very, very holding container. The way I like to do my own practices, I like to build this container with some shamanic practices. Like, I will open the ceremony with some smudging to clear the air, and also call in energies of protection and blessing for myself as I'm venturing into an expanded state. And I really come into that place with a lot of reverence and respect, and asking permission to enter the spirit world. And I like to do an altar. I like to bring elements that sometimes are symbolic, sometimes are very meaningful to me. Like it could be like stones or images or photographs. I like to create a place where all my life, my timeline somehow, or everything that I want to call in from my future self as well, or from my ancestors or the future generations, is somehow synthesized in this altar. And it kind of, it's such an important part of the building of the container. And then another practice that I have is the tarot, and so I will connect with the cards and draw a card and receive some guidance and some direction from that spirit as well. And then I believe strongly in the power of the muse of music. I spend a lot of time with music. I take a lot of pride in creating the best playlists. I really believe that music can do it. It's a powerful medicine in itself. And so going back to the point I think Greg made at the beginning, we can be in an expanded state of consciousness without the medicine. So for those who are coming as novices, I would maybe suggest that you start with learning how to get yourself in an unordinary state, maybe through breath work. And then maybe you can start introducing some medicines, maybe starting with cannabis, but taking really little steps, especially if you're on your own, in your apartment, in a very vulnerable state, as we all are, as we're going through this massive initiation, as Tricia was saying. So you're in a vulnerable state, don't do anything silly. If you have a sitter, if you have somebody that you trust that can be there with you, maybe you can try with more powerful medicines, but I would just start slow and build up and get yourself to a comfortable place slowly, gradually, bringing wisdom to your practice.
Breathwork is an excellent place to start. And actually, I was reading a book, I think Consciousness Medicine, which is really, I think, very similar to a lot of the things that are discussed on this call. And what they talk about is that, there are so many other ways to expand your consciousness that aren't psychedelics. And that oftentimes is the best place to start before diving in deeper. Yeah. So actually, I guess we'll have another question, but before that, just wanted to give a shout out to Carol, David G, and David R, who all were massively helpful in organizing this and are largely the reason why this is happening. So just wanted to give a shout out to those guys for making this happen.
Absolutely. And Sonia, on behalf of the cannabis and hemp industry that I work in, thank you for the shout out. I've seen the power of education and intention that's awakening within the time of COVID within cannabis. And it reminds me of how powerful it can be within the world of psychedelics, not just from a place of care, of caring for yourself and caring and respect for the plants and the medicine, but also the power that it really comes from its effect and wellness and improvement of yourself. And that's really where it starts with any of the beginners out there that are watching.
I would like to survey those people.
Absolutely. Greg, you mentioned it before, so it's a good parlay into DK's question. Dekai, sorry. Dekai, thank you, beloved alum of IDEATE. Thank you for the question. He was very grateful and interested in the phenomenological anecdotes and case studies that you mentioned, but he's wondering if any of you four have info on statistically significant studies or randomized control trials and other studies such as that, for example, on trauma therapy that you can suggest.
I think it's a great question.
There's a lot of randomized control studies. So if you just go to Google Scholar and you type in MDMA or psilocybin and randomized, you'll get them. I wrote a paper for a think tank called the Niskanen Institute. If you just type in my last name in Niskanen, you'll see kind of like the public policy and how the FDA is evaluating some of those studies. So that's an easy way to do it. Yeah, there's been dozens for different types of trauma. So depression, terminal illness related depression, substance abuse, alcoholism, though I don't know if that was randomized, microdosing and creativity. And then there was a very clever double-blind placebo-controlled at-home LSD study of microdosing where people didn't even know what days they were dosing because they would take a pill and they didn't even know if like LSD was in it, and then they would journal about it. And so that's the first double-blind one that I have seen that people could kind of do themselves. But yeah, it's psychedelics are well established. They are easily, at least among depression, I think the last meta-analysis found about 2 to 3x more effective than, let's say, traditional antidepressant and therapy. That was for MDMA. Psilocybin, I don't know how it's been compared to normal SSRIs.
Cool. Tricia or Sonia, did you have anything to add on that, or shall we move on to the next one?
No, just MAPS website as well. It's got good resource of studies if people are interested, and you can find many there too.
Wonderful. Kevin, what's the next question?
Next question comes from Kojo, another IDEATE alum. And he asks, there's a couple questions in here. He's asking, do you ever feel like you ever hit a ceiling with how much you can grow mentally with psychedelics? He's had a number of peak experiences that have helped him grow immensely over the past year to a point where he feels like he can grow himself mentally without needing to use them. But he also suspects that there's a lot below the surface that he hasn't discovered. So should he continue to use it, or should he wait until he feels like he needs another peak experience?
That's a fantastic question. It's absolutely fantastic. I actually think, Tricia, you're probably a good person to start with that one.
I think it's really interesting because the question comes up a lot, when is the right time to do psychedelics? And for what reasons? And absolutely all of these states that we experience through these different psychoactive plants and compounds are achievable through meditation, through different spiritual practices, through breath work, shamanic drumming. There's many different ways of accessing them. Some people access them through near-death experiences. And I would say, anytime where you've reached a ceiling in your life is usually an opportunity. And it doesn't necessarily matter which tool you use. It's really about committing to going into why there's a ceiling there, or even, the idea of a ceiling in the first place, because sometimes we create our own blockages. I mean, most of the time we create our own blockages for ourselves, and it's really about learning how to get out of the way, how to surrender, how to let go. And specifically related to the question of when is the right time to do psychedelics, I always tell people to ask yourself, but ask it in a question that you're expressing externally to the world, just like an intention, and ask the world to show you the answer. And I've seen this happen with people where they're like, I'm not sure if I feel like I would, do the toad, or if I'm ready to do the toad. And then I just say, well, just ask. And then, I get like a series of text messages, and they're like, I just saw like 5 toads, and, like a statue of a toad. And, it was all synchronistic. And it was like the toad was speaking to them and showing them that it was time. So I think like, listening is a very important skill that, goes beyond hearing things. It goes beyond, it's really about sensory communication. And so it's learning how to ask questions and how to interact with the spirit world, the ancestral world, and your environment to really receive that feedback.
Greg or Sonia, did you have anything to add to this?
I would just say, focus on, use the keyword peak experience. I don't know what you mean by peak experience, but different doses of psychedelics work on different problems in different scenarios, right? Like 3 grams of psilocybin may help you like reevaluate your place in the universe, but it's not going to help you send an email. And if you're having trouble connecting with coworkers and you're feeling mild amounts of depression when you work, then that's a different experience. And so I would go back to, ask friends, look at forums, look at the specific problems you're dealing with. And if you find someone who has dealt with those specific problems, or a friend, through a different dosage or a different substance, then seek a professional so that they can help you test that.
Which is exactly what a psychiatrist would do, and what psychiatrists will do in the future is really think about this stuff from a functional perspective. What works? What do you need in this specific scenario to get where you need to go? So that's great. And then Sonia, anything else there?
Yeah, I believe that we never stop working on ourselves until the last breath. I think that our personal growth is the most interesting part of this human thing that we're doing. I believe that we can learn to tune in to our inner healing intelligence when we have these questions, and allow that inner wisdom, that inner guide to show us a way when we feel a little bit stuck. So sometimes it's really about tuning in and understanding where next we can go, and trusting that the inner wisdom is there always for us, and there are always those answers that we're looking for within ourselves. We don't need to look for them outside. Yeah.
Great. Kevin, do we have another question?
We do. We have a question from John. He says he's interested in volunteer opportunities that might be available working within the psychedelic community and therapy settings. Do you have any suggestions?
Tricia, you're on mute.
I would first of all, the Zendo Project has incredible training programs. They have videos online. They have, when there are festivals, they have, psychedelic harm reduction sites where people who are having challenging experiences can go and get support. And what's beautiful is that anyone can volunteer, go through the training. And I would say, I think it's kind of a pre-initiation for people that are, thinking about the idea of getting into some way of supporting individuals with psychedelics, because when you see people in those extreme states, you kind of know what you're getting into. So I think it's really a great place to start. I would also say there's a center that opened in San Francisco that's doing more like volunteer-based work and trying to make this type of work accessible to communities that aren't necessarily having the level of access that most people in our community would have to this kind of work. And they, I think it's called Sage, is it Sage Institute or Sage Wellness? I'm sure you guys, Greg, Sonia, have you heard of them?
That's actually in Oakland, and it's called Sage Institute, yes. And
yeah.
they have some scholarships and sliding scale opportunities for folks. Yeah.
And the other thing I would add, and this isn't necessarily volunteering, but you can always engage in advocacy no matter who you are and where you go. So you can post things on Facebook, on Instagram, you can talk with family members. That's a great way of plugging in that just conversations actually make a huge impact with your family members. You know, let's change hearts and minds.
As far as activism goes, so Oregon is voting on a ballot proposition in November to legalize psilocybin therapy. And so if you want to donate, if you want to volunteer, that's going to be a big push, and it's probably going to be voted on the margins. So as far as activism goes, that's the biggest direct impact anyone can have right now in the country. That's great. Kevin, do we have anything else?
We have one last question, and it's a great one to close on. So for all four of you, want to end on hope. So COVID, we all hope, will end one day. What is your hope with psychedelics that you hope after COVID, in the post-COVID era that we will enter into? What's your hope with psychedelics in that future?
Yeah, so I can kick this off. So I just did ayahuasca over the weekend, and I really left with a lot of hope of that experience. Ayahuasca showed me that people are a lot better than you think. That people are less racist than you think. That people are more compassionate than you think, and that there really is an expansion of consciousness going on right now, even in the most conservative or regressive of places. And so we have to recognize that there are these transformational shifts in our culture that are going on that will have profoundly important and beneficial consequences. We haven't seen it yet because we don't see it in the data, and oftentimes this stuff is just happening in private. So I think we have to believe in people, and that people are getting better right now, even though a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are waking up to what's going on. They're seeing on the internet about systemic racism. So we are getting better.
I would add that I feel that, sorry, I apologize. I'm a little, okay, so I just got back from the Azores and I totally lost my train of thought. I'm really jet lagged. Can you say the question one more time? I had it and then I lost it. Oh, you're on mute.
It's about hope.
We're all hopeful that COVID will end one day. So what is your hope related to psychedelics in a post-COVID world?
Okay, great. I had it there. Okay, this is it. Okay, so really, in order for us to have the world that is one that we share, that we all take care of, that we're all stewards of, we have to bring back equality in all areas. We have to break down the divides in cultures. We have to give those that don't have a voice and give them a platform, especially those that have privilege. We need to think about reciprocity beyond energetic exchange of dollars with the communities that we are getting these traditions and medicines from, whether it's from a scientific standpoint or whether it's from a shamanic standpoint. And most importantly, I feel that the elders that are part of these traditions also need to have a voice and be integrated into our community. And so I feel ultimately we need to bring balance on all areas. And it starts, as I accidentally mute myself, it starts within ourselves. And so each one of us has to take this opportunity to do the work. So my highest hope is that every one of us out there will take this moment going forward. It's up to all of us to go inside and really take a look around there and see if they like what they see and what they can do to improve it.
Who wants to go next? Sonia, Greg. Greg, you got it.
Okay.
Greg's making faces. Sonia, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you first asked the question, Kevin, the first thing that came to mind was legalization. That's what my hope is. freedom to do this work and without risking too much. And at the same time, I'm committed to taking my risks, but legalization would be a good one. I agree with everything that you said, Tricia, that you touched on seriously important matters. So yeah, definitely I would like to highlight that. Yeah, but for me, it's mainly freedom to operate.
Great. And Greg, you're always an optimist about things.
I am an optimist. Certainly psychedelics have contributed to that. But psychedelics made me an optimist in a much different way. I used to work in government, and I used to try to do things through policy and that. And I had a really powerful medicine experience that kind of reshaped my thinking there. And when it comes to like hope and influence, it just said the biggest thing you can do is change things by example. So if you want the world to be a better place, act in the way you hope it can. And if you do it well enough and it's awesome, then other people will want to join you in it. I will want to join you in it. So just be amazing and tell people about it. And I'll be like, hey, I want to be amazing like that person. And that's the best you can do. That's really all you can do, I think. And I'm optimistic that psychedelics help people pursue their passions and be creative and be motivated. And because of that, they end up discovering a lot of the things that they share with others, that other people want to be like them. And we just grow collectively together. So just be awesome, please.
Wonderful. And Kevin, what's something that's giving you hope?
All of you, absolutely. Like the four of you and this incredible like inaugural at IDEATex event. Like I couldn't be happier, more proud on behalf of the entire IDEATE community. I thank you guys so much. Thank you, Jeff, for incredible hosting. Thank you, Tricia, Sonia, and Greg for your absolute brilliance. Thank you so much for your time, energy, and passion. And thanks to all of you for joining us for our inaugural IDEATex event, Psychedelics in the Age of COVID. We're incredibly excited about the events that are coming up. Please stay in touch. Please join us for our following events. They're going to be a personal development workshop, a climate series, and a racial justice series. All incredibly important events. So please stay tuned and please join us. And thanks, everyone. Have a great and wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kevin, for hosting. You're fantastic. And thank you again, Kirill, David, and David. Everyone.
Yes. Yes, all the IDEATE leadership in the community. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you for everyone joining us. Check us out at IDEATE.org. Lean in, join us. There's plenty of fun and brilliance and impact to be had.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.